Hey everybody, John Malanca here with my friend and co-host Natasha Trenev, the founder and president of Natren Probiotics, also known as the mother of probiotics. Hey Natasha, always great to see you.
Yeah, John, we have a very serious issue to discuss. I think the ignorance that people have about bacteria is a big concern for me. And I'm just going to show a very simple transition of how a benign E. coli that used to be part of our friendly flora became deadly. And that's why you have to know which bacteria you're ingesting, who is the real manufacturer of the probiotic product you're buying, and do any of the bacteria that's in that composition have the ability to produce toxic material to eliminate competition. And it's a very serious issue because I'm getting reports from good research doctors that they're not showing any lactobacilli or bifidobacteria in the patients they're seeing. They're doing genetic profile, which is much more expensive than some of the fecal tests that people are running. The science in the microbiome field is becoming quite extensive and serious. And I think our ignorance is very dangerous for a public who doesn't understand that they're ingesting smart single-celled brains who have one objective: to proliferate their own kind. And so basically, I want to tell you that when the antimicrobial world was attacked by something we call antibiotics, and now we know that not only were antibiotics prescribed by doctors nilly-willy, anytime a patient came in, they said, I want an antibiotic because they felt some difference. We did not know that very prominent pesticides were first patented as very potent antibiotics. So not only were we ingesting antibiotics when we were given these pills 2 or 3 times a year by a doctor, we were ingesting secondary antibiotics through our meat, eggs, other things. Even vegetables were sprayed with antibiotics, by the way. And then you have on top of that pesticide like glyphosate as a potent antibiotic that's found in almost 80% of the urine samples collected in the United States. So we have a problem that people are not connecting. So going back to show you how a benign bacteria can be pushed to talk to other bacteria, which microbiologists did not believe until the 1980s, because its existence is being threatened by antibiotics. So basically, the E. coli was a gentle player in our normal gut flora. And in fact, the famous German company was selling benign E. coli as a supplement. And for 30 years, they were trying to persuade the FDA to allow them to bring that so-called gentle E. coli into the United States. And the FDA resoundingly refused because they were worried about the bacteria sharing genetic information. And I won't use technical terms, but bacteria started sharing genetic information with other groups of bacteria, which was not an accepted premise in microbiology. And to show you what happened with the E. coli, it was threatened to be extinct by the use of antibiotics. So it lined up with an organism called a Shigella, which makes a very potent toxin and is one of the very nasty food poisoning organisms that are part of the 80 million people who get food poisoning either from Shigella, Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli, you name it. It's just not that readily reported. So the E. coli decided it's going to talk to the Shigella and it's going to exchange genetic information to make it more powerful so that it cannot be attacked. So what happened is that they sort of line up next to each other and they communicate by photon light emission. And the Shigella decided to share its ability to make something called the Shiga toxin with the E. coli. The minute the E. coli adopted this, it became deadly. It became even more deadly than the organism it got this toxic making ability. And so when you now have food poisoning from this E. coli, and I'll show you a chart shortly, this toxin was so, how shall I say, so much stronger than the original Shiga toxin found in the Shigella organism, that it could literally shut down your kidney. And people are not aware, how fast these changes can take place, how quickly these bacteria can adopt, because their very survival is threatened. So I'm going to show you this little graphic, and I want you just to understand briefly. You don't have to know high-level science. It's basically the E. coli can and will cause kidney failure, even with a small amount, so small you couldn't even see it clearly with a microscope, which is 500 times magnification. So if you look at this DNA, it adopted the ability to make this Shiga toxin. And this new E. coli, you don't have to remember this, it's just called the O157. This happens to be the 7th mutation of this bacteria. So it makes this new gene, and it makes this toxin. And what it does, it pumps the toxin to eliminate competition. Most people don't understand that bacteria will make toxins to eliminate competition, because its primal directive is to multiply its own kind and to eliminate competition. So interestingly enough, that when we had this E. coli problem erupt in the 1980s, and we still have E. coli breakouts, and ground beef is one of the favorite places that it is found, it will shut down your kidney. And the CDC told the doctors, please do not give antibiotic therapy to a patient who presents with an E. coli infection, because this E. coli has so evolved that it gets so furious that you're trying to kill it again, that now it starts pumping maximum amounts of this deadly toxin into your kidney. And I think, it's my opinion, that a lot of the kidney problems today are probably from some of these toxins that are pumped out by bacteria that we don't even discuss or know about. And it does lead to kidney problems and to kidney failure. So can you imagine? Here you have this food poisoning. The doctor cannot give you legally, antibiotics. So you have to weather it through. And that's why I'm saying, it's very important to know who is the true formulator, researcher, and manufacturer of your probiotic organisms. That is why I only use 4 organisms and don't fool around with the rest, because I only use organisms that have been in the literature for at least 100 years, that have never shown any bad activity, especially against human beings, and that are safe at any level. Because I think, in my humble opinion, this kind of transition of bacteria into more deadly ones is happening now. I think the food poisoning organisms have become smarter. They are releasing these toxins, and the people who are taking these soil organisms in probiotic products are making a very bad choice, because under certain conditions, that's why they're soil organisms, and that's why they survive in the soil, because they're able to produce toxins to get rid of competition. And the silly stuff that the people selling these soil organisms tell you, if you eat the organic vegetables, that's fine, because the soil bacteria are found in the organic vegetables. Well, I don't know about you, but I was taught by my mother to wash my vegetables and fruits, even if they were organic or natural, because we know about the bacteria that can be present on them, and they need to be washed off with the proper, fruit and vegetable cleaner. Usually vinegar is a good one. And that's when you eat it. And so I think we've lost this concept of sanitation. We've lost the true understanding about bacteria. And we have an explosion of all kinds of illness, because one of the major causes of autoimmune disease is bacteria that fool your immune system into attacking the cellular structure of the body instead of the invader. That's just a simplistic explanation. But anyway, that's, I hope that's not too difficult for people to understand. So maybe you can act like the consumer and ask me questions that you think they may not understand.
Okay, well, first off, I don't know why you're not warning me that I have this E. coli coming and attacking me from behind, when you have that beautiful bacteria called bifido behind you. So as a good friend, I would warn you on this. You mentioned about washing the food, and so it's always important, even if it is organic, etc. My dad, the Malanca side of the family, they're down in the Central Valley here in California, and in the farming business, honeydews and cantaloupes. Until about maybe I want to say 10 years ago, it is now mandatory, a regulation that when you have the I'll say migrant workers picking out in the fields, now they actually have porta potties that go along with them throughout the fields, as well as washing stations, specifically for that reason. And they've taken it a step further, which each and every box that goes out, this is not just with my uncle's business, but each and every box that goes out, there's a QR code. And so if they're sending it around the United States or further, and God forbid something happens, an E. coli breakout, the market or the facility where they've sold at the grocery store, if they have any complaints, they can go right back to those boxes, take a picture of that QR code. It knows exactly what part of the field it was picked from out here in California, and they're able to halt and send out a warning or stop the presses type of thing of an E. coli breakout on some of that product. So they are starting to crack down. That's why we're not hearing as many cases of E. coli as we did, a few years ago. There's a lot of misconceptions. You brought it up about E. coli with antibiotics, and I didn't realize doctors were not allowed to prescribe, because sometimes the prescription of antibiotics can worsen the effects of E. coli. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I can make it more angry. This is only for this particular organism, but I think it sets a precedent. They just found out that this E. coli was so evolved, this OH157, that when the doctors prescribed antibiotics to kill it, it became more furious and was pumping out more toxins than ever. So that's why it's so important. And I've been saying this for the last 30 years, that your best protection is to make sure your microbiome has the right probiotic bacteria, that you know who you're buying it from, that you're engaging in a diet that's, very carefully selected for your genetic type. And a lot of people give false information. I'm telling people in this day and age, you should not be eating a lot of raw foods. I've been saying this for a long time. It is not an era where you can afford to eat a lot of raw foods unless you have your own garden in your backyard, that you know exactly what's in there, because a lot of these bacteria are also airborne, like salmonella. And we've done this to our own environment. It's not just, we're talking about, climate change or whatever. We have a serious microbial insurrection or uprising. They are, learning how to survive all these chemicals we have used against them, especially glyphosate, which is a potent antibiotic and was sprayed, is still being sprayed. And a more potent version of glyphosate is now being used in our farms and in our people who are growing our food for us. So it has become a very serious issue. And I think that a lot of misinformation for people who have a 30-second attention span is disseminated. And it's very dangerous to have a little bit of information, because you really do not understand, what you're drinking. Somebody told me yesterday, which horrified me, that, if their milk was left outside, didn't bring it in the house, it would make its own kefir in the carton or the bottle. And I go, no. The bacteria that are found in milk, that spoil it, are not your bacteria that make kefir. Trust me, you are drinking something that could potentially hurt one of your organs or cause a serious effect. So this kind of misinformation is what we're here with the Natren team to teach you about, that you need to understand bacteria. And right now, there's massive confusion in the market by companies spending millions of dollars selling product with a list of microorganisms that nobody knows whether those bacteria are really in the product or not, because they don't guarantee the potency of each of those bacteria they list on the carton or the label. So it is our job to make sure that we're not consuming a large variety of bacteria, which has been falsely told us that, this is going to enhance the diversity of our microbiome. That's not true, because virtually 80% of those bacteria listed don't survive. And the only ones that survive are the ones that possibly could become dangerous. So I think this misinformation needs to be straightened out. We need to have serious conversations because, as it's so well known, we have a sick nation. We have a chronically ill nation. We have a host of chronically ill children, and we haven't made any progress. The situation is not getting better. It's gotten worse every year. So it's our choice. Our choice, who we listen to. I've been in this industry for 60 years. I've seen and heard everything. I'm only here. I should have retired a long time ago, but I'm only here because I care. I truly care. And I don't want to have sick children and sick mothers and sick fathers and sick family members, because I know what it does to the family. And there's no magic bullet. I think handling your microbiome is like your first line of defense. And if you have a healthy microbiome, your body is very capable of defending and healing itself, unless you put some kind of an extreme stress on it. So this is something we need to learn, and I think we need to start doing right away. Who we're getting advice from regarding diet, bacteria, and the environment, because there's a lot of misinformation, half-truths being circulated in these 30-second sound bites, whether on Instagram or TikTok. And it's just, the situation is too serious for that to continue.
It's a lot of the news that I receive is on those little swipes, if I call them. And I'm certain there's a lot of misinformation, because there's a lot of debate even amongst my brother and I on our views on things. You mentioned good bacteria, and behind you, as I mentioned, is the bifidobacteria. What would you share with our audience on preventative, or God forbid, they're under the weather with E. coli?
I think you have to have massive amounts of beneficial bacteria. Mm-hmm. I think you have to stop eating all raw foods. I think you have to be very careful. I think you have to drink massive amounts of filtered water, hopefully with lemon. And I tell people, take our probiotic, especially the Healthy Trinity, 1 capsule every hour, because it's not harmful at any measure. And so it really depends on the individual, how good of a host they are, how bad, their challenges. The good news is that for 42 years, no one has gotten sick on our product or even reported any kind of an injury. So this is what's important to know, that this product has a safety history with no complaints of any kind for 42 years. We have 80% retention of our customers, and the people who take our products do so regularly and really enjoy optimal health. It doesn't mean that they never get sick, but they're the ones who probably have the best chance of being healthy.
Thank you. I'm one of those regular people, and I love you and your products for that. So, well, great. I know that probably phone calls, my mom checking up on me in the background there. So please tell her I said hi. But yeah, no, I always appreciate your information on here, and for our audience members, call Natasha's company, Natren. There's a wealth of information. Susan, Faye, Carolyn, been around for close to 3 decades now, working side by side with Natasha, and a wealth of information. And even Natasha's available if you have any questions about this topic or others. Any closing? Let me ask you something. You said raw. In my mind, too, yes, raw on what's out there, the vegetables, etc. A lot of E. coli, the mindset when you think of E. coli is, in most cases, is raw meat. Do you recommend, if I do eat meat, which is very rare, and if it is a filet mignon, out of all the steaks, that one I go rare. The other ones I'd go medium rare or medium.
I would just, in Eastern Europe, where we have a history of longevity and good health, nobody eats rare or raw. This is an American.
But what about the steak tartare? I know on other parts, I lived in Belgium, and that was a staple meal.
Well, they had a different social acceptance. They
Yeah.
probably, from one generation to a generation, developed a certain protection against that raw meat, and probably the checkpoints in producing that raw meat were much more stringent than we have here.
Well, in a perfect thing, bringing back a few podcasts we had a while ago from kombucha or any of the pickled,
we get from other cultures. Americans like to adopt food concepts without understanding the genetic background of the people using those food compounds and how they use them. Well, and this is a very dangerous thing where somebody adopts it. And this is one thing that they do. If it's in the culture more difficult to produce or check, they said, that's not good for sales or marketing. Let's eliminate that, make it easy for us to consume that. And that's how those shortcuts lead to problems. They're not as bad as the problems with the 1,000 chemicals we have in our food right now that are causing also bacteria to evolve and adopt, which is not a good thing, besides making us sick. It's an entire concept where we've lost contact with our observations from our previous generations, how to handle food, how to treat food in the kitchen, where our food source is coming from. If you remember, in the old days, people used to go to their local market and get local vegetables and fruit. We don't do that. We get vegetables from around the world. And our bodies are really not adapted to handling those bacteria, which are handled from the natives in that country. And this is one thing Americans need to really think about, that bacteria and this business of being local, shopping locally, getting to know your farmer, knowing where your food source comes from is the first thing we need to understand about our culture. And then the second thing we need to understand is that people always ask me, well, why do I have to take a good probiotic every day? And I said, because the environment, your air, your water, your soil, your individual microbiome has changed radically in the last 50 years. I didn't cause the problem. I'm just telling you how we have to deal with it. And we really have a couple of decades to try to eradicate this, because our children are not born healthy. The women who give birth to these children are not passing on the essential bacteria. We are heading to a crisis much worse than we have right now if we keep listening to these 30-second messages about parasite cleanse, about colon cleanses, about soil bacteria, fooling around with stuff and listening to people who have half the knowledge and are just interested in selling you something.
Yeah. Well, speaking about selling something and not going from one to that, you must be doing something right of over 15 million bottles sold. And I'm going to say more because you probably weren't counting it when you first started out of the gate. 44 years later, 4 decades later. So, Natasha, always a wealth of information. I know your heart is in the right place of helping others and doing what you do for the past 4+ decades. So, I thank you for that. And any closing words?
Yeah, just go to our website, natren.com. You can see our number. We're one of the very few companies that actually have live people that will answer a phone call. I think it's very important that you take
here in the U.S.
Yeah, here in the U.S. And we also have, good agents now in Great Britain who do talk to their patients. We're trying to establish a global community. But, here you can call us at 866, the number 4, and then you spell out the word Natren, Natren. And if you go to our website, that number is there. I may give you another 800 number. Call any number you see on our website or the one that I just gave you. But make a decision today that you're going to listen to someone who's been in this industry for 60 years, who cares about you, and would never do anything to sell a product that might harm you.
Good. Well said. Well, wishing you and your family health, and thank you for all you do. And for our listeners, thanks for joining us again for another podcast with Natasha Trenev, the mother of probiotics. I'm John Malanca, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.